Alright guys, it's here, the video where I will be talking about how to configure BGP on router OS v7. So a few people have been asking me to make this video, and I've been a little bit reluctant because there is some stuff on BGP that I'm not very happy with on router OS version 7 yet. However, the baseline is there, and I'm more than happy to show you guys just how to get your peers up and running, how to redistribute routes, and how to advertise routes out using an output filter. So let's get into the video. Alrighty, so for some of the people that may not be aware of BGP, what it is, it's basically a dynamic routing protocol. And it is actually the routing protocol that allows the internet to work the way that it does. So it's set up in such a way where ISPs peer at an internet exchange or with each other, and they set up BGP, and this allows them to advertise their public routes to the internet so that we get a way or a path, because BGP works on what we call a path vector, and it will figure out the best path how to get to a destination. But it's so nice because the path can be dynamic. So if one specific route or destination or router goes offline, it can just follow a different path to get to that end. So that's really awesome, and why BGP is so useful. But that is in the sense of eBGP. You get stuff like iBGP as well, which you might use in the ISP industry to span or use or create certain services, specifically stuff like BGP Signal, VPLS, and with other router providers like Cisco and Juniper, they might even use that for eVPN, which is a very big trend for the last couple of years with those vendors. But BGP is a very useful protocol, and it's super powerful, allows us to advertise our routes quickly and efficiently. You can also even set stuff up like failover with BGP. So if you have two links to a site, maybe there was another link to the CPE that I've got on this Eve topology, you could use BGP to configure some sort of active passive failover, where if the one link fails, then it will just fail over automatically to the other link without any issue. So BGP, super powerful. I just quickly want to go into the MikroTik docs to show you something about BGP, because they have made some changes when it comes to BGP. So let's just type MikroTik BGP, and there should be a help. There we go. So help.mikrotik.com. This is the new, I'd like to say, documentation that covers everything for all of the router OS v7 things, at least. Well, a lot of it. But there's a lot of details for BGP in here. So I will put this link in the description. But besides the information that's being covered here, I want you to also take note of, on router OS version 7, MikroTik have added what they call roles. So you can specify what role your BGP is going to be working as. Is it going to be eBGP? Is it going to be iBGP? And then there's even some sub roles for stuff like the eBGP that you can get into, which I'm actually trying to scroll into now, just so that I can show you. So there you see there's a dot role, so local dot role, and you get stuff like eBGP customer, eBGP peer, eBGP provider. And this just comes down to this link, which I also actually think that people should read up on and go through. But more or less, this is just a standard that a lot of the world uses. And MikroTik has just implemented this so that you can also set your BGP to, is it a provider? Is it a client? Well, what is it? Is it a customer? Is it just a peer? What are you doing with this BGP exactly? But for the most part, a lot of your stations, you might just leave them as eBGP or iBGP, depending on the scenario. eBGP being if you're connecting to another autonomous system number. So if AS65000 is connecting to AS65100, that is eBGP. If I was connecting to the same autonomous system, so let's say in this ISP network, PE1 was connecting to P1 on 65000, that will be considered iBGP. And that we don't use often, but we do use it definitely if we want to do stuff like I said, VPLS, where you want to span very specific services with the BGP. All right, because no offense to BGP, but there are other better interior gateway protocols like OSPF or ISIS that just does that job better for inside area routing. Okay, So these details I'll put in the description. Now I actually want to show you how to configure BGP. So I'll first be doing the configuration on the PE1. So this will be, think of this as the ISP router, and I want to connect that to my CPE1. So let's do that. I'll try and do this through Winbox quickly. So I'll just log on to this provider 1 router. I'll connect to the ROM1, then I'll connect to the PE1, which is right there. And then in the PE1, what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate to the routing menu. And then from routing, we've got BGP. So I'm going to maximize BGP, and now we can talk a lot about the actual changes, because as you can see, there's no more BGP instances. There's no more BGP peers for you to configure here. And there's some other tabs also missing. But what I want you to notice is there are templates and connection, and then obviously the sessions as well. Now, templates allow you to define a base configuration that you might want to use for certain groups that you want to apply to peers. Maybe all of your CPEs will be using the same type of base configuration. That's what you'll be using the templates for. So you can create a template, and the template, you can almost think of this as your instance, but it's not, because you can specify and tweak your stuff on each connection specifically. But let's call this just a, let's call it temp1. That's fine. We can define what the AS should be, what the address families will be. Router ID, if you leave it blank, the router will dynamically assign one, but you can statically assign it as well if you'd like to. And I'm just going to click on the templates here. Actually, let me just remove that. And as you can see, there's just some base stuff that you can fill in here. Like, do you want to specify default originate? Is there certain routing tables or VRFs that will belong to what the whole time is? It's really just a template, so that, let me apply it so I can show you, so that when you go to the connection, and this is where the magic happens, this is where you basically configure your BGP peers. When you click on the plus here, you can now select that template, and you don't need to fill in the stuff like the AS, because the template will then fill it in for you. But I'm old school, so I tend to not use the templates often. But the templates are nice, and they are there for quick configuration to store some basic stuff that you want to set up. But let's set up a new BGP connection. I'm going to call this peer to CPE. And now I can specify my AS from here. So the AS isn't in the instance anymore. You can specify it on the connection itself. So I'll make my AS 65000. Address family, I'll put that on for IP, because we are going to use this for IPv4. If it was IPv6, I'd use the IPv6 address family. Router ID, I'm just going to leave blank in this instance. Now the remote address I need to specify, and that's going to be the IP address between my PE and my CPE1. So 172.29.0.2 is my CPE. So I'm going to fill that in, 172.29.0.2. Now the nice thing about BGP on router OS version 7, you can leave the remote AS blank, because besides putting in a /32 remote address here, you could actually make this a range, like make it as /24, and it would try and create BGP sessions to everything in that range. It would basically send out those hello, or not hello, the BGP packets to all IPs in that network space. And then if it gets something back, then it will typically try and form a relationship. But it can now guess the remote AS. It can actually read from the BGP packets what the remote AS is. So I'm going to leave this blank just to show you, because it's essentially going to know what the remote AS is because of what I fill in on the remote side. Now I just need to set my local role. And in this case, it's going to be eBGP, because I am connecting to an autonomous system on the outside. And there's some other cool options. Connect, listen. This is more for this dynamic BGP stuff that we've got going on now. So you can tell this router not to specifically connect. It will wait for connections to come to it. Here we can set our extras. So for me, a big thing that I'd like to set is the default originate, so that we do send out a default route out to the CP, so they know how to break out to the internet. One worthwhile thing to note with the default originate, if you enable this, so if this is always or if installed, or even if never, if you have the option set and you don't have a default route in the routing table for whatever reason, the peer just won't come up. I have no clue why that happens. But that is I guess a small issue. But as long as the 000/0 route exists in the routing table that you're trying to create this BGP peer on, it will come up and then it will actually send out the default route depending on what you're doing with the default originate, because default originate just means that it's a default route that we're going to be sending out. All right. So now I've got my connection set up on my... All right, so let's set up BGP on the client now on the CPE. So I'm just going to do this via the command line, show you how quick and easy it is. So I'll just type routing BGP. Then we can go connection. I'm going to add a connection. I'm going to give it a name, call it peer to ISP. I need to specify my remote.address, which is going to be 172.29.0.1. And apologies, the console does this with version 7 and CHRs. And now we need to specify also our own AS. So my AS is 65100. It's the autonomous system of the CPE. And we need to set our local.role. So what type of BGP is this? This is going to be eBGP. And these 4 settings are all that I need to actually get the peer up and running. So I'm going to hit enter. And now to verify that the peer is up, we can go routing BGP session. And we can print this. And now you will notice that it shows you the E, much like when you were printing your peers. You can see if the peer is up or not. Here we can see this remote address is up. We can see what its autonomous system is, which we learned dynamically. We can see what the capabilities are. So the RR is for stuff like route reflect. And we can see what the uptime is. So this is really decent. All right, now let's see if the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. If I do an IP route print, I am learning my default route. So the default originate that I set on the ISP router, it is working. I'm sending out a default route to the client, and now it's got a way out to the internet as well. So this is perfect. I'm really happy with this. Cool. Now we can look at setting up advertisements from the CPE side, because I want to give you the scenario that perhaps this 192.168.100 or 0/24 network that's here on the CPE, maybe we want to advertise that out to the ISP network because they need to know how to get to it. Maybe it's some server stuff. How can we do that? Now, there's 2 ways that we're going to advertise routes. One being by redistributing, and the other one by advertising very specifically what we want to send out. Now, I firstly want to look at redistributing because it's very simple, straightforward, and easy to do, but it's also pretty risky because it does stuff in bulk, and you need to apply stuff like route filters to effectively use redistribute. So let's do a routing BGP connection. And all I'm going to do is set. So set is just going to flick something on the current configuration. So I'm going to set the output. So output dot. And then I'm going to set redistribute equals. And if I tab that, you can see much like how the BGP instances used to be, where you could redistribute from there, you do it on the connection now, and now I can redistribute my connected routes if I wanted to. So I'm going to just say this is on item 0 or item 1. Let's do routing BGP connection print. So it should be 0. Strange that it's not taking it. Okay, there it took it. I don't know why it didn't take it when I specified the number there, but this is probably just one of those weird version 7 quirks. By the way, I'm using version 7.1.1, so definitely a little bit of a bug. All right, so we've said that the redistribute connected should happen. Let's go to our PE and see, are we actually learning the routes? If I go into my routes, I'm not learning the route, but I know actually what's up. And this is weird because on the BGP, if I go to the sessions where you see the prefix count, you'd expect that to go up. It just shows 0, but it always shows 0. So that's also another funny with the version 7 BGP. But all I'm going to do is disable or re-enable my peers. So routing BGP connection, disable 0, enable it again on the CPE. And if I look at my routing table now, you'll see that I'm learning the route 192.168.100.0, which is great. That's what I wanted to learn. But I'm also learning the connected route of 172.29.0.0/30 as a BGP route now as well. So this is why you'd have to apply stuff like route filters so that you don't have funnies like this. But let's see, can I ping 192.168.100.1? I can, so that's perfect. The BGP is working. We've actually learned that local subnet on that CPE. Let's do it on the more proper way by using the output.networks option. So we only specifically send out that network, because you used to have the networks tab on BGP. That's gone now, which is good and bad, but now you need to do it through the connections itself, and I'll show you how to do it now. So first things first, I want to go into the option we just set. So I'm going to go BGP connection. I'm going to unset. I'm just going to say it's for the peer to ISP, and then I want to unset the output dot redistribute, so that it doesn't redistribute routes anymore. And then what we're going to do now, and this might seem weird, but it'll make sense. We're going to create a firewall address list. So whatever you put in this firewall address list will be the networks that you're going to advertise out. So I'm going to go IP firewall address list, add, give it the address of 192.168.100.0/24, and give it the list of BGP-out. So that will be the entry. It appears I've already added the entry, but that's perfect. So we'll use that entry to actually advertise the routes out. And before we do any of that, I just want to make sure that we're not learning the routes anymore. So we're not learning any routes now. So all we're going to do is go into the CPE. We're going to type routing BGP connection. We're going to set our output.network. And there we can specify that address list that we just created. And that's the BGP-out we just created. Now I'm going to hit enter. And that's it. Now we're going to just advertise that specific network that we wanted, which is great. This is very granular. This is awesome. So you can add more networks into that address list, and it will advertise those additional networks out. So let's go into our PE, look at the routes. I'm not learning them yet, but I know why that is. It's because the BGP is being a bit funky. So all that I'm going to do is disable again, re-enable, and do the same here. And if I go to my PE now, if I look at my routes, I should actually see it come up. But this is so silly that I'm not seeing it. All right, so that's working. Let me just look at my address list routing, or IP firewall address list. So the address list is fine. Let's look at our exported list. That's also fine. So I'm actually quite happy with this routing BGP session print. So I'm actually expecting the route to be here, but for some reason it's not. Let's just do a resend, refresh, and do the same on the session on the CPE quickly. Resend IP. Refresh. Let me check now. All right, there we go. There it's up. So I was actually expecting that to work, because disabling, re-enabling the peer kind of does what we just did, but we just resent whatever information on the session specifically, and that's taken it. So that is how we can advertise a very specific route, and that is the preferred method. But as you can see, I'm on this BGP tab, I'm looking at the session, and it doesn't show any prefix count here. So there's definitely a bit of work to be done with the BGP. It does work, it is functional, like what we're doing here, this will work fine. But as for setting it up in big ISP environments, I'd highly suggest waiting a bit and still using version 6 for now for those purposes. The other smaller niche stuff, or the labbing, it's perfect for at the moment. And I'll make another video as soon as they release the BGP is like 100, or everything on RoS's version 7 is perfect. Then I'll revisit the BGP again, because they're doing a lot of work. Even on the RC 7.2 beta, let me go there, let me show you. I go to MikroTik.com, and this is crazy to me. Well, not crazy, but it's a lot of work that they're doing. So if I look here, it's a 7.2 release candidate 1 testing. And if we look at this change log, sorry, I need to find it here. There's the change log. Look at all these changes they're making. And they're changing stuff with the BGP a lot as well. So I feel like there's still some things that needs to be tweaked, but at least I could show you how to set up BGP on version 7. So hope you enjoyed, lab it yourself, and tell me what you guys think. How do you feel about BGP on version 7? Do you like that the instances are gone? Do you like the templates? How do you feel about everything in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts. I also like to thank the people that support the channel on Patreon and YouTube members. You guys helped out so much, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See ya.